Hey random people out there on the internet, if you watched the last video you saw how I could take and put two parallel straight edges on a board using a level and using a piece of wood on my table saw. That's actually called jointing, if you want to know. I'm sure a lot of people already know that. So the next thing we need to do is to straighten it where we had bows. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to straighten this one on the edges. Okay, so by passing the level and this through, the blade set up high and a feather board that holds it in there nice and straight, the hope is that we'll cut right through there and then we'll have a nice straight edge on one edge of this board. And then we can flip it over, run it through the other way and get a straight edge on the other. So let's see how this works for us. Turn back on. what we end up with? Well, we have a lot smaller board, but it's flat. I think that worked out pretty good. Eventually, I'm going to start cutting these into strips to make the birdhouse, which will be a totally different video. But the idea today was to show that we can take some of the worst wood and make usable pieces out of it. We lose a lot of wood, but at the same time, the intention is to have wood that we can use to make our projects with without spending a lot of money. The original board was a 2x4, which is actually 1.5 by 3.5. It was 8 foot long, and it was twisted, it was bowed, and it was warped. So now what we have is several smaller boards that are about 7 feet long, and at the very thinnest, about 2 5/8 inches thick. Again, not a lot of material, but we salvaged what would have been trash. We couldn't have used that board any other way. It was in just too terrible of a condition. Now, I would advise that if you use my methodology for trying to narrow and cut your wood, you need to be extremely careful. When a blade is up this high, it presents quite a hazard. And since we have what's called a zero clearance on there, it makes a lot of dust. The saw is very loud. You want to make sure you're protecting your eyes and your ears. You want to make sure that as you pass it through that you're using something, a feather board, to hold it, and a push stick to push it. You want to make sure it's very stable as it passes through the saw. You can also use sticks. You can use most anything as long as you're keeping your hands as far from that blade as you can. Anytime you get within 3 or 4 inches of that blade, you're really taking a chance. Because if that blade touches you, just touches you, it's going to ruin your day. It's going to be a very bad thing. It's going to happen really quick, and there's no saying I'm sorry. There's a great idea. Make sure you keep a first aid kit so that if you do get a good cut, you can take and stop that bleeding right away. Sulfa powder, so on and so forth, that is in a standard first aid kit. You want to be careful and not have an accident, but if you do, you want to make sure you're prepared. That's why I say at the end of every video, most important thing, always remember, be safe.